Captain, you're not going to believe it, but we finally found one.
Wonderful. Put the red eye on screen, please. Finally, we can uncover the secrets of one of the last mysteries of the Steven Universe universe. We better contact AJ back on Earth. I think he'd want to know what we find immediately.
Alright, finally I have a chance to sit down and watch the new episode of Amphibia. Or not. Hey, Karen. What's up?
I'm happy to inform you that we've finally encountered a red eye as per your instructions.
Hey, that's great. What can you tell me about it? Actually, Captain, our sensors can't penetrate it. I can't tell you anything about it but the color. Well, that sucks. Well, I guess all I can do then is form my own theory about what it is, which, I mean, it's not like I don't have my own ideas. And I do need something for the 5-year anniversary of my theory series today. Alright, I'll slap something together. Thanks for heading out there, guys. You might as well just come home. So, the red eye. Something from very early on in Steven Universe. The second episode, in fact. And while there's been lip service paid, let's say, to what exactly the red eye is and what its function is, what we know about it doesn't actually make a lot of sense, if you really think about it. The red eye is apparently a probe. Apparently the reason that the gems were so worried about it is specifically because it was going to send information on their presence back to Homeworld, and yet that's not why they said they were worried about it when it appeared. Their claim was that the red eye would strike the surface a la the moon from Zelda Majora's Mask, which would have apparently destroyed at least Beach City instead of just, plunking into the ground. Which is weird, because even though the red eye is shown to be pretty big, it's not that big, and it didn't look like it was falling that fast. Though, like everything else in the show, the scale of the red eye relative to other things is a little wonky. We also see one near Pink Diamond Zoo at one point, and it's very difficult to tell how big it's supposed to be. That said, I think the first question that needs to be answered about the red eye is, why would the gems say it was going to crash if it wasn't? And I know that it wasn't, because it had to relay its information back to Homeworld somehow, and we know it didn't transmit the information, because Peridot flat out said they didn't get any word back from the red eye that there were gems on Earth. And we know the gems were seen by the red eye. At least one of them was, anyway. That being Amethyst, who was thrown at it repeatedly, which the fact that Garnet was able to throw Amethyst all the way to the red eye, and she only fell as far out to sea as she did, further complicates the scale of the thing. But again, I'm not going to talk about the scale here in any serious capacity. So anyway, we know that the red eye did see at least one of the gems. It had to have known that there was at least one gem still active on Earth, and yet it didn't transmit that back to Homeworld, which tells us that it was going to deliver that information in a different way. Now, I've mentioned this elsewhere on the channel. I've talked about the red eye elsewhere on the channel, little snippets here or there, but I want to consolidate everything down in this video. Obviously, I was hoping to get some more conclusive information about the thing, but since that's not going to happen, here we go. Consolidating all my thoughts into one video. Alright, so clearly the thing wasn't designed to transmit information back to Homeworld, probably because it got around using a wormhole drive, and just taking the files back to Homeworld physically using the wormhole would have been faster than transmitting them back via Lightspeed radio or something, right? Like, Lightspeed's fast, but instantaneous transportation via wormhole, or at least comparatively instantaneous, is still faster, right? So, put simply, I think that the red eye didn't transmit that information back to Homeworld because it was going to physically return to Homeworld and upload the information that it gathered into Peridot's computers, assuming that it found anything. Because we know from the fact that the gems recognized what the red eye was, that this is an Era 1 device. So we can assume that these things stay out in space for long periods of time. hence why they would still be using an Era 1 device for this. It's not something that they call back to Homeworld often enough to replace them. What I think happened is Peridot diverted a red eye that was out snapping pictures of stuff throughout the known universe, probably looking for planets to colonize, sending it to Earth, intending for it to take some snapshots, and if any of those snapshots happen to include gems, return to Homeworld early for a pit stop to tell her that, if not, to just continue on its way. Hence why when she didn't get any information back, she wasn't suspicious. That said, we have to ask ourselves why the gems would lie then, effectively, and say that this thing, which was definitely intended to return to Homeworld, was going to crash into Earth. And the answer's, I think, pretty simple. They didn't want the people of Earth to get scared and realize that there were still people out there who might want to harm them, and by extension, the people of Earth. And when I say they didn't want the people of Earth, I specifically mean they didn't want Steven to know any of that. They didn't want to freak him out. They didn't want to freak out Greg with that information. And, like, they wouldn't have wanted to freak anybody else out, but I think those two people, were their immediate primary concern, right? This is a similar situation to the gems just allowing the humans around them to view their super advanced technology as magic. It's easier than explaining what it actually is, so they just go along with it and also call it magic. It was just easier and more convenient for them to say this thing is going to crash into the planet and destroy it than it was to explain the true situation of the gems and Homeworld to everybody. Especially in a way that wouldn't have gotten torches and pitchforks raised against the gems, right? The only question that leaves is, why did the red eye have to get as close as it did in the first place? The entire thing is basically just a giant zoom lens. That's why it looks so much like an eye, right? That's clearly supposed to be a zoom lens that only looks like an eye. So why couldn't it get information on the gems from orbit? And when Amethyst hit it for the first time, and it had clear evidence that there were still gems on Earth, why didn't it just turn around and leave to go relay that information? Was it trying to be thorough? Was it also supposed to maybe check up on whether or not the cluster gems were starting to emerge? But, like, that doesn't even make sense, because if it was, then Peridot still would have expected some information back from it and would have been suspicious when it didn't return, aka was destroyed. I don't know. That last question is a hard one to answer. I don't know that I'll ever have an adequate answer for it. The crew has said a few things about the red eye over the years, but not enough things for me to piece together and answer that question from what they've said either. But I think the rest of this fits. I think if we take a second to think about it, the red eye must be some device which physically relays information back to Homeworld, and that the gems just lied that it was going to crash, that was a lie, that was never actually going to happen, that the real race against the clock was to destroy the red eye before it, I guess, got close enough to finish its search parameter and then leave or whatever. Maybe that's what it was doing. Maybe the gems knew that it had some specific search parameter that it had to carry out before it would go about its business. Which I'm dancing around declaring the red eye a messy retcon. I think it's a mysterious threat that the crew threw into the show that they thought they might be able to relay back to the greater lore that they were building, but they didn't really think through the implications of its behavior. But I think despite that, I've done a pretty good job of piecing together a version of what this thing is and what it was trying to do that does fit within later lore. That said, if any of you guys have a better idea for what exactly the red eye was doing and why Peridot wasn't suspicious when she didn't get any information back from it at all, if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm right, let me know in the comment section down below. I know this isn't a super exciting theory for the 5-year anniversary of my theory series. Like, seriously, my first theory went up 5 years ago today. How crazy is that? It was a simpler time. Before the stinking apocalypse. At least I have a spaceship. I can leave the planet if I really want to. Assuming Karen gets the ship back without it being destroyed again. Anyway, I thought maybe going back to early episodes for a theory might be fun for you guys. I hope it was. Either way, though, man, thank you guys so much for 5 years of this. I know my channel's kind of stagnated. I'm not growing anymore. And only a select few of you guys really show up anymore. But I still love doing this so much. And I love you guys so much. And I'm so happy to do another Steven Universe theory. I'm going to start doing more of my Steven Revisitverse episodes so I can start combing back through old episodes for things that I might want to theorize about, because I want to get back to theorizing about Steven Universe again. I was also serious, too, about wanting to sit down and watch the new episode of Amphibia, because I want to start theorizing about that, too. And if there's anything from the excellent Disney Channel show Amphibia that you'd like me to theorize about, please let me know. I relish suggestions. All of that said, though, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.